Hi, yes. Okay, I'm live, I think. Here we go. I thought it's a Saturday afternoon, Valentine's weekend, cold, snowy weekend here where I am in New Jersey. And I thought it might be a great time to just dig in a little bit to autoimmunity, to what's stopping you from feeling better. Maybe you're not realizing all the places that you could make a difference for yourself. Yeah, let's dive in a little bit this afternoon if you have just some time away from the TV or something like that. So, what I'm going to do is if you want to post comments, if you want to ask questions, I'm going to be going through a gut test quickly, but going through it, a sample lab report. If you want to ask questions, you need to be able to, I think, let StreamYard know that you want to post comments. So you have to do that. Otherwise, I won't see your comments. And the other thing is, I'm going to share my screen and then come back and check, and share my screen and come back and check so that I can make sure that I catch things as they come through. Okay, but let's dive into autoimmune issues. If you're in my group, fatigue, thyroid, and autoimmune recovery, I know there's a lot of people in there with multiple autoimmune issues. And let's just dive in and see if we can get a better understanding about why that is and where you need to go to work. So here I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Okay. Here we go. Oh, I should have put this back to the beginning. Sorry. Okay. So let's look at the root causes. I don't know what your specific root causes are, but generally, what's going on that's having your immune system be doing what it's doing? Oh, let me get rid of this here at the bottom. Okay. So this says thyroid dysfunction, but this is a slide from advanced training that I did. And this applies to really any autoimmune diagnosis that you might have been given. So whether it's rheumatoid arthritis, Sjogren's, fibromyalgia, any of those, Hashimoto's, Graves', all of those, it doesn't really matter how your body is expressing it, because it's the same root causes that are, we're going to need to go after for any one of those. So what you want to do is notice, I hope that you can see this, all of these things, when we see, again, this is related to thyroid, but any autoimmunity, that's what's being expressed outside, but underneath at the root, these are the things to look at. So we go, and yes, autoimmunity is going to affect, but these things are autoimmune issues. So there is a genetic component, perhaps, but then we're going to look at the gut specifically, and we're going to go into that a little bit deeper here in today. We're going to look at other environmental toxins and oxidative stress, impaired detoxification pathways. So all of these affect your thyroid. All of these really affect your immune system. Okay, so the first one that I want to look at is the microbiome. And I'm pretty sure if you've spent any amount of time on the internet at all lately, you've seen gut health is everything. Your microbiome is a key to how you need to feel better. So let's really take a look at that. If you have been told that you have leaky gut, okay, over here, and you're not sure what that is, or maybe you've never heard the term leaky gut, but it's important to how you're feeling better. Let's see if we can explain exactly what that is and how it happens. And then I'm going to go into a sample stool test so that you can see what a test can tell us. So this here, as you can see, is a healthy gut. So think of your GI tract, your gut, as like a tube. And from your mouth all the way to the other end, right? It's one continuous tube. And the role of the GI tract is to, when things enter, allow the good things, the nutrients that we need, the vitamins and minerals, to pass through the lining into the GI tract and to keep out the things that are bad. So this is like a slice of this tube. And this very light blue area here is the space in the middle, okay? What's floating around in the space. This darker blue is the actual lining, the mucosal border, of the gut, and then below that it's mucus. It's mucus lining there, like our respiratory tract and all the way down. It's all lined with mucus to help catch the bacteria, to help, be a barrier. And then below the mucus is the actual lining, and it's, goes like fingers, like villi, because that increases the surface area for absorption, right? What's important is this is a single layer thick. It's not like this big steel wall of border. It's just one cell thick. So the mucus is really important to keep stuff out. And then even more important, or all of it's important, in the middle, what do you got going on in there? What's living in your gut? That's your microbiome. So if you can see this is showing good, healthy diversity of good to bad bacteria, low levels of pathogens, right? This is all in the healthy gut. Pathogens are any gut bacteria or parasites, and viruses, anything that has the potential to grow into really causing disease. That's what a pathogen is. If it becomes too abundant, if it goes on long, the potential is there for it to really cause dis-ease. So that would be a low level of pathogens. We all have them, but we don't want to get that too high. And then your mucosa here, that mucosal border is nice and intact, and the inflammation is not very high, the inflammation is low, and the junction between each cell is nice and tight. So that's allowing nutrients in and keeping stuff out. Over here is what a leaky gut would look like. And so what are the components of a leaky gut? Well, the diversity in that tube, what's living in there, is not good. It's not very diverse. So we don't have a lot of good bacteria doing the job that they should be doing. And when we look at the microbiome test in just a minute, we'll see that. We have too much pathogens, right? An overabundance of pathogens, and now the mucus border is being damaged. And now all of these guys have access to bump right up against the cell walls. Over here, that mucus border makes sure they stay out. But when the mucus border gets damaged, now these cells are inflamed, right? The cells are inflamed, the junctions are separated, so we have space and gaps for these pathogens and these bad bacteria to leak into the bloodstream. Here's the bloodstream, and this is your immune system. So this is where the immune system is alerted, certain things have entered, no good, mayday, mayday, and the immune system goes after it. And now the immune system is triggered. And that's a big key to food sensitivities. Why does everybody who has immune issues and autoimmune disease have food sensitivities? Because we have leaky gut. Leaky gut is always part of the picture. And when you have leaky gut, the food you're eating is also leaking through. So it's not only the bad bacteria, but now your food proteins are leaking into the bloodstream as a protein that they shouldn't be. And, before your body really breaks it down. And so your immune system is now flagging those foods. That's why you're developing more and more and more food sensitivities. Okay, so I want to come back into StreamYard and just see if there's any questions before I keep going. So I don't see any questions. Okay. Remember, I can't see the questions if you don't give StreamYard permission to post them. So I could see them after. When I'm done, I can go back in and see questions potentially. But if you want me to see them now so I can answer them as we go, you need to give StreamYard permission. Okay. All right. So let me go back to sharing my screen. All right. So that's the difference between a healthy gut and leaky gut. That's what a leaky gut means. Now, if you know you have leaky gut, or maybe you don't know, but I'm here to tell you, if you have autoimmune issues or any kind of really chronic health issues, you've got issues going on in your gut, because that is the first line of defense. Anything coming into our body you know, whichever end it comes in. You could swim in a lake and bacteria can enter whether you swallow water or it can enter from the other end. But anything that enters the body is going to be handled through the immune system. And the gut is the first line of defense. Okay, no, I don't want to jump there. Where I want to go now is to a sample stool test so that you can see what that looks like. Okay, so let me go back into here. Let's jump to, I have to do this to switch screens, I'm sorry. Here's a sample test. All right, this is a sample stool test that from Microbiome. And at this point, this is basically the most common stool test that I run. I've run different runs. I've run a GI map. I've run gut zoomers. I've run other companies. I like Microbiome's test now for a few reasons. Number one, I think their technology is the best. Stool testing isn't fabulous in terms of reliability. First of all, you take a sample of stool. So the lab can only see exactly what you took, right? If the sample that you take and fill up in the vial and send to them didn't happen to collect sampling of bacteria, they're not going to see that. So that's the first drawback. But the second drawback is really the technology and the lab's ability to identify all the bacteria. And without going really into it, I believe that Microbiome has the best technology now to do that. I also love their report. So this is their report right here, BiomeFX. You can see it's 20 pages. And I'm just going to go through it, so that you get the idea of what's the information that we can tell. So what we can tell is how diverse somebody's bacteria are. We can see, here's pathogens. Remember I said pathogens are things that can, if they become too abundant or stay there too long, they can cause disease. So here's the pathogens, and this is saying Clostridium difficile. That's C. diff. Have you ever heard of C. diff? People in the hospital can get C. diff easily. We all have this, but it should be kept at a very low level. Our good bacteria should be doing a great job at making sure this does not become abundant. So when we see high, that's a problem, because C. diff, when it gets too abundant, causes a lot of problems in the gut. It really changes the terrain. That's what we're talking about, the environment, the terrain of what's living in your gut. And this person doesn't even have symptoms. She had no idea she had C. diff, okay? But it's high for her. Another thing that this lab will tell us, these are keystone species. Keystone, I would think, would tell you very important, right? So there's certain species of bacteria that play very important roles. They help keep inflammation down. They help tell other bacterial colonies what to do and help them thrive. If these keystone species, most of these are low, that's going to be a real problem. So the lab tells us which of the species. So when you're buying a probiotic, are you getting a probiotic that's actually going to feed the species that you need? You could be buying a probiotic, to be honest with you. Most probiotics over the counter in the grocery store never even live to get to your colon. They don't make it through your stomach acid and your body temperature and all of that, number one. And even if they do, are they actually feeding what you need? So what's here on this report could be very different for the next person, right? So are you getting the right bacteria, probiotics to do that? And then this section here that I really like is the function. So the report is less helpful for me if I don't know, well, what does that mean in terms of how my body's functioning? How is that going to help me to make real changes? So there's certain functions that the bacteria in your gut do. This whole section tells us what functions are not working great. So like butyrate. Butyrate is a very important short chain fatty acid. Short chain fatty acids, as we scroll down, I'll show you, okay? But very important in what they do and role in the body. So is propionate, also a short chain fatty acid. those two short chain fatty acids are very low. So the function that they do is not going to be served in the way that your body needs. This is showing that the synthesis of these vitamins, okay, is well, this one is low, these are high. And so what I've learned is very important is that there's balance in the gut. We don't want things to be too low or too high because the colonies work in relationship to each other. They have a balance and there's a ratio that you want to be in. So sometimes it seems like, oh, well, that's a good thing. And so it's good that it's high. Not necessarily. Okay. So we want to be in range. But these are all different functions that the gut does. So now as we start to look, this is just graphs comparing this person to the general population. This is looking at the different groups of bacteria. So Bacteroides is one group of bacteria. Firmicutes is another group. Proteobacteria, right? So this would be a US healthy population profile, and this is what this person looks like. So we're looking to see, are the ratios where they should be. This table here is actually like a percentile. Like if you remember going to the doctor, if you have kids and they're like, oh, they're in the 95th percentile for growth or the 60th percentile, whatever. So this is looking at the percentile ranges for these different bacteria. What we would like to see is people right down the middle in the green. Remember, not too low and not too high. This person has a lot of very low bacterial families. So we would like to be right down the middle. Okay, this is just giving the actual numbers. This is now the next level, more different groups of bacteria. Again, normal, healthy microbiome, what this person has. So what I can see just by looking at the colors is there's a lot missing over here. This person has, very low ranges and even missing. And again, we see here different groups than before, a little more in the green, or down the middle, but still a lot on the low end and some significantly on the high end. Okay. So pages and pages. Now we're going to look at dysbiosis. That is the ratio of good to bad bacteria. So this is Firmicutes to Bacteroides. So the lab tells us what should the ratio be. This is what this person is. And here's going to explain to us what that means. Okay, and then here are the numbers. Here's the range, here's the numbers. So for this one, that particular ratio is good. The person's right in the middle. But look at the next one. For this ratio, proteobacteria to actinobacteria, right? Those are two. So that's like in your neighborhood, the Smiths to the Jones. Those are two different families that live in your neighborhood. We need both families because they do two different jobs. And what's the ratio? Maybe the Smiths have, all their cousins and grandchildren, and there's 35 Smiths living there, and the Joneses only have 2. That's not a good ratio, right? That we can't get all of the work done in the community that we need done if the ratio is not balanced. So this person is well below the range. There's not enough of the proteobacteria. The next one, Provotella to Bacteroides. So Provotella is not even showing up, okay? So look, low Provotella is associated with metabolic imbalances. So things that would affect metabolism, things that would affect the functioning of the body just from being low on this particular bacteria. Okay, now we see here the C. diff. That's the only thing that showed up in this particular sample. I've had clients with C. diff and 3 and 4 different parasites. H. pylori is one. Last summer, I had 4 people with H. pylori that we were working on clearing. If you don't know what H. pylori is, it's a bacteria that really causes a lot of damage, and you can't make headway if H. pylori is abundant in your gut. Okay, so that's showing that. Let's see, these are all the pathogens that this lab tests for. Here's H. pylori, the C. diff, right? The E. coli. These are all gram-negative, Yersinia, Klebsiella, Candida. You've got Giardia. Okay, these are parasites, Blastocystis hominis parasite, Epstein-Barr virus. It's looking at the DNA of that virus living in the gut. But these are either some viruses, cytomegalovirus, or parasites. Okay, so it's a good amount of pathogens. Let me just scroll through here. Okay, here's what I wanted to show you, just as an example, and then we'll probably leave this test now. But so butyrate, as I said, butyrate is a short chain fatty acid. Short chain fatty acids are very, very important in your gut. They have a lot of jobs. So right here, butyrate is probably the most important. What does it do? It enhances intestinal barrier function. So it helps keep the lining. That's bacteria sort of like they're lining the wall, making sure it stays healthy. It acts as a fuel source for other important immune cells. It scavenges for ammonia. Ammonia is a product of protein. When you eat a lot of protein, if you're doing a high protein diet, you're making a lot of ammonia, which is stressful on the kidneys and causes other types of issues. And so you want to make sure you're clearing that. This particular bacteria helps scavenge for excess ammonia and gets rid of it, helps regulate your immune system. It brings down oxidative stress. Oxidative stress was one of those things in the tree in the first slide that I showed you, one of the things that contributes to autoimmunity and more, okay? So, so that's what butyrate does. Not even detected in this sample. So this person's number is green is for this person, and then the range is between the red and the blue, right? Red and the blue. Here's where they didn't even show up. The next one, this is another short chain fatty acid, propionate. Different jobs. What does propionate do? Supports a healthy immune system by encouraging the regulatory T cell differentiation. So your T cells are triggered when you have an immune response. If you have autoimmunity, that immune response is getting triggered, sometimes inappropriately, and then not shutting down. That's what autoimmunity is, you know, in a nutshell. So this particular bacteria helps regulate that T cell differentiation and make sure that there's a good response. It also helps promote gluconeogenesis in the liver. That's making glucose in the liver. Helps with insulin sensitivity. So that's related to estrogen dominance, diabetes, insulin sensitivity, and it improves your gut hormone production, okay? The hormones that are produced in the gut. Both propionate and butyrate work together to support a healthy inflammatory response, okay? So making sure inflammation doesn't go through the roof. So that's just two bacteria right there. This report will go through many, there's pages and pages. What is it? What does this bacteria do? Where are you at? Okay, so let me stop here, go back into StreamYard. Any questions? No questions. Okay. I hope that you're not asking questions and I just can't see them. Okay, so that is the microbiome test. So where I left off in the autoimmunity slide presentation was with your microbiome as one of the root causes. And I also pointed out when I showed you the difference between a healthy gut and a leaky gut, why food sensitivities develop. Because when you have leaky gut and the food that you're eating is leaking into your bloodstream, that is triggering an immune response. That's why you can be becoming more and more sensitive as time goes by, because if you're not fixing your leaky gut, then the foods that you're eating are going to keep causing sensitivities. Okay, so that's where we left off. I wanted to go into the stool test while we were there. So let me go back into the other root causes for autoimmunity. Here we go. Okay. Okay, that's where we left off, healthy gut, right? And then we went into the lab report. So now what I want you to see is that your gut, here's your stomach, small intestine, large intestine, bumping right up against the liver, okay? And the pancreas and the gallbladder are all in there. This whole system works together, I don't know about you, but before I learned this years ago, I kind of just was like, oh, my liver does this, my stomach does that. And I didn't really realize the relationship that they have, that it really is all one system. So when we look, and you can kind of visualize like a funnel, right? Everything in your body is going to go through what it needs to go through and then be eliminated out the bottom. If you're not eliminating, right away you can see there's a problem. That would be like the sewer on your street blocking up. So now you have a heavy rain or something and you see the gutters filling with water and they're not going down the sewer. Same thing here. If you're not pooping, and let me tell you, you should be pooping 2 to 3 times a day. Once a day, we'll take it if we're working on stuff, if we can get people. But I have people call me and they're like, I poop twice a week. Oh my goodness. How often do you eat? Right? If you're eating and that system is not working, you need to be eliminating stuff out the bottom. So the first place we need to go to work is what's going on with that gut. Why are you not clearing stuff regularly? What's happening when all that food is staying sitting in here? Well, what's happening is the system is supposed to be the liver's job is going to detox out all the things your body is exposed to. So throughout our day in our culture, we're eating foods with chemicals, we're inhaling chemicals. Our water has a ton of stuff in it. Glyphosate is Roundup, which is being sprayed on our crops. That's the liver's job. And when the liver detoxifies, it pulls out all that stuff. It gets, I'm going to say like piggybacked just to make it easy to understand, the bile from the gallbladder, right? The gallbladder is kind of like a warehouse and stores the bile, but the bile salts, the liver, all of that needs to move freely and send the toxins into the gut to be eliminated out. If you're not eliminating, they're not leaving the body. So the poor liver's doing the best job it can with all of these toxins every day, and you're just recirculating them because you're not getting rid of them, number one. Number two, maybe you're pooping, but your gut is leaky. So as all of this stuff gets sent to the gut, it's now leaking right back into the bloodstream. So again, it's either not leaving because you're not pooping, or it's leaking right back in before it gets a chance to get eliminated out. And we're going to talk about what causes some of that. But the liver working with the pancreas, okay, the pancreas is producing certain things that are super important, working with the gallbladder, doing all that detoxification so that then your body can clear. Let me tell you, we know that autoimmunity, chronic health conditions, fibromyalgia, a baseline of the problem is inflammation. The body is staying inflamed. Why is your body inflamed? Because all of that stuff is staying in your body. Your cells at a cellular level cannot do their job if the garbage, if your household is making garbage and every day you take that garbage bag out of your kitchen garbage and you just set it on your porch or on your steps and no garbage man ever takes it away. What's it going to be like to live in your house after a while? Enough time goes by. Picture that 2 months down. People are sick for 10 years, 20 years, where this system is not working. If you had 20 years of garbage bags that were not getting picked up by your garbage man, what would it be like to live in your house? Could you live happily in your house with the smells, with all of that, right? That's what your cells are trying to do. They're trying to do their job with this whole system not working. That's why you're sick. That's why cancer cells, we all have cancer cells in us? Why does someone get cancer and someone else not? Because those cells, if the immune system's doing the job it was meant to do, if we're clearing stuff and getting rid of debris and looking at cells as they die and finding damaged cells and clearing them, then your immune system can handle it. So let's talk about more why this is happening. Okay. Oh, so let me just go back a minute. So all of your body is sending stuff to the liver through your lymph, and that's what this is a picture of. Okay, so this is the lymph. It looks a lot like the cardiovascular system, but it's green, right? When we see the cardiovascular system, it's usually blue and red, veins and arteries, right? But it's all throughout the body, and you can see all the little nodes here, and the lymph nodes and the lymph system is gathering all of the waste from all of the tissues throughout the body and bringing that to your liver. So each cell up in your brain, if you have brain fog, things are collecting in the brain that you're not clearing. If you have pain in your muscles and your soft tissue and your joints, there's inflammation and stuff that's not clearing. The lymph's job is to go through that's why it's, a system all throughout the body, find not only the cell's waste products, like the cell's garbage bag, because each cell is going to have debris and waste just from doing its job, but it's also looking to find what has accumulated in your tissues that shouldn't be there. And we'll see that in a little bit. But viruses, if you've had Lyme disease likes to settle into certain tissues of the body, settle into joints, sometimes settle into the heart. If you've had Epstein-Barr virus, that's a virus that doesn't leave the body necessarily on its own, right? Like chickenpox. Chickenpox, you've had it, you overcome it, and then years later you get the shingles. Shingles is the chickenpox virus, right? So the lymph system is looking to clear stuff. Heavy metals, the glyphosate that I mentioned, settles into tissues. Oh, I could talk about it forever. I was just going to get into glyphosate in a minute, but let me stick with the topic. So that's what the lymph is supposed to do. Now that's like your sewer system draining into the sewer. The lymph is bringing all of that to the liver. Well, if your liver's all jammed up and connected, and that, this system up here that we talked about, the liver's overburdened, the toxins are not leaving, guess what happens? Your drainage pathways get backed up. Okay, you have cloggy drainage pathways that are not clearing from all the tissues throughout your body. So like for one example, this is actually a slide. Let's see, mercury vapor being released from a 22-year-old filling after being rubbed by an eraser. So this filling was in this mouth for 22 years. All right. The released vapor at first settles down in the mucous membrane of the nasal cavity. So being rubbed by an eraser, do you brush your teeth every day? If that's going to make the mercury release when you rub an eraser, what do you think's happening when you rub with your toothbrush every day? So you've got mercury fillings. That mercury has been released for 22 years. It's settling into the tissues, the mucous membranes of the nasal cavity, and then it's being transported wherever, okay? And not only is this happening, or if you drink hot liquids, that releases the mercury. Not only is this happening, daily by having these fillings, but if you were to go and get them removed, if they're removed incorrectly, a lot of the mercury is released into the soft tissue. That happened to me. I'm sure, and it's happened to many, many people that I've worked with. So mercury is one heavy metal that causes a lot of problems. It doesn't leave the body. It doesn't dissipate unless we get rid of it. So we need to find that mercury and get rid of it, or it's going to be a big contributor to your health. What's another thing that's causing issues? Parasites. So a lot of people feel like if you're alive on this planet, you've got parasites because we're biological beings on the earth, and parasites live and thrive. They're in water. If you have animals, if you have dogs or cats in your house, there's a good chance that you have parasites. Parasites, yes, they live in the GI tract, but they also travel up. They travel up into the liver. There's something called liver flukes that you can actually see in the toilet when we're doing parasite cleanses. There's parasites that get into the bloodstream and they move throughout the body and they find places that they like to live. And what do? Well, they disrupt the cycle of your cells. So normally, your cells live and die, and we're always replacing new cells. Well, if they disrupt that, again, that's like the garbage isn't being cleared. And now your cells, the waste and all of that is accumulating in your body. Parasites purposely suppress your immune system so that your immune system can't find them. They're smart little critters. So they do that. That's a big reason why the immune system, excuse me, is struggling. Okay? So your immune system is being suppressed by the parasites. And then another thing that's quite important that they do is the mitochondria are the things in your cells that are made to produce energy. If you're having fatigue, you think that you have adrenal fatigue and your adrenals are shot because you're so fatigued. The current research is saying it's a mitochondria problem. The adrenals and the cortisol really tell us about your circadian rhythm and whether your production of cortisol is appropriate. But when you have chronic fatigue, because, if this is resonating with you, just think about it. If you're taking supplements to help with cortisol, if you're doing all these things, then there's a lot of people whose entire businesses revolve around you having adrenal fatigue, but it's not the adrenals, it's the mitochondria. So the energy that your mitochondria are needing to produce, one thing that can happen to that is parasites. Okay? Another thing that's going to have a big impact on your body are different medications. So the medications can interfere with the mitochondria and their ability to make ATP. ATP is energy. That's your food broken down into energy. And that happens with an electron transport. So I think of an electron transport. Remember, like an old fashioned, like a house is on fire and the whole town would show up and they would pass the bucket of water, pass it. So grab it, pass the bucket of water. And then the last guy would get the bucket of water and throw it on the house, right? The old fashioned way to put out a fire. That's an electron transport. So we're moving electrons down the line, transporting electrons to make energy. Medications and other things can interfere with that, but this is about the medications. Drugs can also create a deficiency of carnitine, which is very important. This helps transport your fatty acids. Fatty acids, remember short chain fatty acids from the microbiome test? Short chain just means how long they are. Fatty acids, critical. Fatty acids are important for your mitochondria to help make energy. Fatty acids create the cell membrane. That's what the membrane of your cells are made up of, fat. So we're eating low-fat diets or we're damaging the cell membranes and that's not getting repaired. And now you can't receive the hormones. That's where hormone receptors are, on the cell membranes. That's where you take in nutrients in the cell membranes. So if you're damaging the cell membranes and the fatty acids that would go to make those membranes or to make energy, it's going to be a problem, right? And what else does that? Antibiotics. What else do antibiotics do? They wreck your microbiome. They kill off the good bacteria. Painkillers. If you are living on Excedrin or Advil, Advil is damaging the lining of your gut, very damaging. Years and years ago, like literally almost 30 years ago, 28 years ago, I had a client, a personal training client. Her husband was a GI doctor. And he said to me, I was at their house working with her, and he said to me, Advil alone is keeping me in business. He's like, I love Advil. Everybody's pounding Advil and everybody's ruining their GI tract, and it's just giving me more business. That's what he said. So, that's what Advil's doing, but other painkillers are just affecting, this whole process. Statin medications for cholesterol are also causing a problem with the immune system and with the liver and the whole GI system, and then other drugs as well. What else is happening? Remember that original tree that I showed you in that first slide? Oxidative stress is one of the root causes for autoimmunity. So these are all the things that produce oxidative stress in our bodies. Processed foods. If you're eating things coming out of a packaged, um, that you're getting through a drive-through, that you're heating up in a microwave, a lot of inflammation, and then your body's not clearing the inflammation if this whole scenario is the way it is. If your microbiome is not healthy, if you don't have good ratios, that causes oxidative stress. Even just the two examples that I read through, they work together, remember, to help clear oxidative stress. Oxidative stress produces free radicals. Free radicals is a free electron. Remember that electron transport? That's a free electron that didn't get used up. So now it's hanging out there available for somebody to latch onto. You know who latches onto that? Cancer cells. They see that free radical and they say, oh, there's an opportunity for me to take hold and to grow. So free radicals can help promote the growth of cancer cells. Oxidative stress produces free radicals. What makes oxidative stress? Everything we're talking about here. So if your gut microbiome isn't good, then oxidative stress. Chemicals, plastics and chemicals that we're exposed to all the time, the pesticides that our foods are grown in, especially glyphosate, cigarette smoke, chronic psychological stress, and I'm going to talk about that in a couple of slides. Radiation that you're exposed to, especially now with the 5G, the EMFs, we live, you don't see it, but all around you right now while we're on the computer, the radiation, the electromagnetic waves are, all around your body. The different, the different chemicals in chlorine and other cleaners. Alcohol causes oxidative stress. If you're not regulating your blood sugar, if you're eating stuff and letting that blood sugar spike, very stressful for your body. Molds and Lyme disease. Okay, pretty comprehensive. So we need to go after all of these. Like if you're like, okay, I changed my diet and I still don't feel well, here's maybe something to look at. Okay, I wanted to talk about stress, the nervous system, and how that's affected. Maybe I should just go back into, hold on, let me just go back into StreamYard, see if there's any questions. No questions. Okay, let me go back. Okay, so here we are, and we're talking about the heart and the brain coherence. That's when your nervous system is working together. Your heart and your brain are talking to each other so that the information going out to the rest of your body, to your immune system in particular, is coherent and organized. How does it get incoherent? When you're under chronic stress, when you are living in that fight or flight and you're making decisions and your brain is so focused on noticing what the problems are, so worried about managing your stress, it's sending incoherent messages out to the rest of your body. So your heart actually gives more information to your brain than your brain gives to your heart. This was amazing to me when I learned this. The heart has way more information and nerves and hormones that are always bottom to top sending information, and that's your feelings, that's your emotions, that's your worry, your fear, your anger, your frustration. All of those emotions are sending the information to the brain, and the brain's going, what do I need to be afraid about? What am I under attack for? Who do I need to fight? And now the brain is focused on that, and it's sending scattered information to the rest of the body. So heart rate variability is huge, becoming more and more recognized that the nervous system and getting your nervous system to relax and calm down, you can clear all the parasites in the world. But if you're not doing that, you're not going to get better. So HRV stands for heart rate variability. That means here's a good coherent heart rate variability. That means pretty consistent wave of your heart rate up and down, and the space between the heart rate is pretty consistent. And this is happening when you are experiencing these types of emotions. When you're calm, when you're appreciating something, when you feel love, when you're caring and compassionate, okay, that's when your heart is here. You're incoherent, so the heart wave looks all over the place when you're living with anxiety, worry, you're irritated, judgmental, okay? So these are two different heart rate patterns, okay? And we work on heart rate variability training just as much as clearing parasites, just as much as creating a healthy microbiome. It's just as important. And these are the medical issues that develop when you have an incoherent heart rate over time, over and over. So, high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease, your weight, you can't lose weight, you're in chronic pain, your belly is a mess, you develop autoimmune issues, okay? Your brain gets injured, cancer thrives in a person who's feeling that way. You can't sleep, you have breathing issues. Okay, those are all things that are impacted by your heart rate variability. And then mental health. Okay, you can see these as well. So we go to work on getting people's heart rates improved. And what do we see that you don't even really realize maybe is being affected? Skin issues. If you're not clearing stuff, if your liver and that detoxification pathway is not working, your skin is going to show it. What else happens? Chronic pain in your back, in your hips, in your knees, chronic headaches. So what I really want to leave you with, we're going to wrap it up now. That's the last slide. Is so many people think that they have this genetic predisposition, right? It's just my genes. Everybody in my family has this or that. Those are the genes that I got. And that may be so, that those are your genes. However, coming back here, whether your genes get turned on or shut off depends on all the other stuff. So you may have, the worst gene expression for various things, but you can change that and how that gets turned on or off when you work on all of the things that we've talked about for the last 45 minutes. Okay? So I just wanted to give you that overall picture. Make sure that you understand, number one, that you can make the difference, that you can really, really reverse your symptoms, that you can shut down the autoimmunity. And what I want you to realize, we don't say we cure autoimmunity because it's a spectrum of whether you're in full-blown symptoms flared up, you've got one thing after the other and you feel terrible every day. And the other end is living a great life, symptom-free, tons of energy, body doesn't hurt. That's the spectrum. And wherever you are depends on how well you're managing all the things we talked about. So we can go to work today and start to clear all that stuff. And, 3 years from now, you're in an accident and that's going to flare up a stress response. You've got to do the work. But with my clients, we really work on understanding the tools that you need to know what do you need to do if that happens down the road. Because listen, we're living life, right? We're living in a pandemic. Accidents are going to happen. Bad relationships go bad. Jobs aren't great. Finances go south, whatever. You have to learn how to navigate that, and also how to clear the things from your body, the physical toxins. So those are all the things that we go to work on. And what I think is really important to also understand is if you're watching the internet and you're seeing people post different things, and then you jump on that, like, oh, that's what I should be doing. It may or may not be so. Like you can see behind me, right? I have all the medical medium's books. I love the medical medium. I love to learn about the foods that he talks about, what foods affect what. I have all his books. And I've had in the past year 2 clients when we tested their microbiome and we saw what their bacteria were, they had some significant issues. And both of them had changed their diet based on the medical medium's, books, and it wasn't right for them. So, for instance, one woman had not been eating potatoes, and potatoes in the medical medium, was promoting. I don't remember which book she read, but she was like, "Oh, I did that, and I added potatoes back in because I thought they were good." And potatoes are good. I'm not saying potatoes aren't good. I'm not saying every single food he suggests aren't good, but for her, potatoes were bad. When we did the testing, they were highly inflammatory for her. So she had added potatoes back in to her diet, and that was causing an inflammatory response in her gut that was contributing to bad bacteria now thriving because of the inflammation. It wasn't right for her. So if you're following what other people are doing or trends, my recommendation is number one, find out what's right for you. The right off the bat in my autoimmune full program, I do 3 labs with people. I do that microbiome test that I just walked you through automatically. I do food sensitivities test, so you're not eating potatoes when you shouldn't be. And then we do a DNA genetic test to really understand what are the genetic predispositions that you have. That's right off the bat. There's other things that we do to go to work on heavy metals, parasites, all of that. We could test for every one of those. We could do a heavy metals test. We could do a nutrient test. We could do this test and that test. And they all cost hundreds of dollars because insurance doesn't cover any of them because they want you to do the testing that'll have you get a prescription. That's how the system's set up, right? I don't do a ton of tests unless we need to. But the program is going to assume that we have to go to work on all these areas, and we're going to go to work on those. But knowing what foods you're eating every day, that's important. Knowing what bacteria or what pathogens are thriving in your gut, that's important. And then knowing if you have some genetic predispositions that we need to pay attention to. To me, that's important. Those are the 3 that make sense to start with. So what's my message here? Don't just follow trends or what supplement do I need for that? What supplement should I be doing for my adrenals? Find out what's appropriate for you and what's not appropriate for you, number one. And number two, if you're going around and around in circles and you've been at this for 5 years, 2 years, 6 months, but certainly years, and you still aren't feeling better, maybe it's time to work with a practitioner that you can actually speak to every week and not just a book that you read or, somebody who's doing, stuff online, but you have no access to them. You might get a data bank of frequently asked questions. You might buy a program for a few $100 and you get their data bank or something, but you get no access to somebody actually walking you through and getting your tests done and telling you what you need. So to me, that's the difference. So if that resonates with you, and if you're like, yeah, I've been spinning my wheels too long and I want to work with someone who's going to do that, then definitely drop me a message. It's just a conversation, but I can tell you what we do and how we do it and the different ways that we work it. It's not just one way. It's not just one size fits all, right? So there's options depending on what you're able to do, what you're ready to do, all of that. Okay. But hopefully this provided something for you on this cold February weekend. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Okay. All right. Have a great rest of your weekend and I will see you soon. Thanks. Bye.